Okay, here we go. Oh, what's going on, guys? Honorable Soft-Spoken Shaman here. It's been a minute. First things first, if you're not subscribed already, make sure you do that. Hit that notification button, all that good stuff. I'm trying to go live a little bit more nowadays, but it's hard. I'm busy. So I'll get into the subject soon, but the funniest thing was putting this video up a couple days ago about the white supreme pizza whole movement, and as expected, I got some fan mail. I got some hate mail on that one too. The hate mail, it was just screeching what you would imagine. When you talk about stuff like that, people get pretty pissed, and I'm not saying that if you're a white pizza that you should not be proud of that. You should be, but to be supreme about that pride is probably misplaced. And like I said, I mean, the FBI and NSA and all these data collecting organizations, I mean, they want to see you go crazy. I mean, that part and parcel of what's going on right now, it's called a silent weapon for a quiet war. What do you think inflation's doing right now? It's tightening, it's over tightening screws around your life, so you feel nothing but stress. All of you used to be able to get go to a deli and get a sandwich for $6-7, and now it's like $15. That's enough to drive people insane. And people say, well, go cook your own food. Sure, but even the raw materials at the grocery store are elevated in price. Where I remember there was a time during the pandemic where it was almost parity between parity between eating out and then cooking your own food. It was almost like a wash, depending, on the price. It was like the same pretty much. So it's all about getting you stressed, all about getting you destabilized and off your square, so to speak, to use a Freemasonic saying. That's what the whole thing is. And so that's why it's so important to keep your wits about you, because everything going on right now in the world is meant to propagandize you into becoming destabilized, unstable, and because then, to the matrix, to society, to the status quo, you appear as a threat. You appear as a disturbance. But really it's gaslighting, because the world around you is creating this disturbance in your mind. It's just up to you whether you want to echo that back to the world, or whether you want to just chill and be like, all right, I have nothing to do with this. I'm not going to let this cause me to become a person who disturbs the peace. You know what I mean? Because honestly, that's part and parcel of what's going on right now societally, is that the powers that be actually kind of want you to disturb the peace, because then it gives them the what do I call it? It's been a long day. They want you disturbing the peace because then it gives them the ability to, come heavy-handed on you, come down heavy-handed on you. And obviously that creates a lot of problems for you, your friends, your family, and everything. So that's why I bring it up. It's not because I'm anti any type of person. I'm certainly not. I amongst my friends, there are white people, there are black people, there are Jewish people, there are Indian people, all types of people. So I'm not anti anybody, but I'm just saying that, it is okay to be proud of who you are and of your identity and of your heritage. That's definitely totally fine, and that's covered by free speech. I mean, we still have free thinking also, I mean, the things that you keep in your own little brain or mind, cannot be levied against you by the government, because they don't know what you're thinking. At least we don't think they do. But, the problem is it's always that dividing line between free speech and where it stops being free speech. And my whole thing with the white supreme pizza movement is that when you start airing these thoughts in a menacing, aggressive, assaulting type of way, it no longer is covered by free speech, because you're committing to negative action. And now, you're threatening, you're menacing, you're doing all that stuff, which can be construed as different types of crimes. So again, if you hold not just the white supreme pizza thing, but if you hold any sort of ideas that are not, condoned by the status quo of today, you're best just keeping it to yourself or amongst people you trust. Because when you air those things or you commit them to action, you create a window for the government or any other ruling body to come down heavy-handed on you and to make your life a living hell. That's just what it is. So today, for those who don't know, I'm from Chicago area, and on my fake book, I'm still a part of some groups on there about just what's going on in the area. And I posted this on my community post, but there was a guy who was caught, I guess, on a bar crawl in DeKalb, Illinois. DeKalb is west of Chicago, about 40, 50 miles. It's where Northern Illinois University is located. And so he was on this bar crawl, and basically he got arrested for harassing or whatever numerous women. And I looked at the mugshot, the booking information. Poor guy. He was a Hispanic dude, 39 years old, 5'1" and 120 pounds. I mean, hey, what he did was, I don't know if he did that or not, but what they allege he did is wrong. You shouldn't do that. You shouldn't harass people. We all know that. But you got to feel bad for the guy, man. Like, genetics just dealt you a really bad hand, To be a man and to be 5'1" and 120 pounds, probably like 110, soaking wet, that's really bad. I mean, that sucks. And you don't want to condone it, but you can understand why a guy like that would just lose his marbles, at some point. Because you're living life and you're noticing you're hitting an impasse socially, dating-wise, and you're wondering, I wonder if it's my personality. Well, no, brother, it's not your personality. It's because you're 5'1" and you're 120 pounds. It's sad. It's really sad. I mean, the whole black pill, just seeing how a guy can go through life like that. He can't do anything about it. Think about it. Like, let's say a guy who's 5'1" like him went and spent $100,000 on leg lengthening surgery. Now, that leg lengthening surgery looks ridiculous on people who are 5'7", who try to become 6 foot. All the proportions are off. Imagine how much worse the proportions are when you're 5'1", you're trying to be 5'9". I mean, I don't know if any of you remember Inspector Gadget growing up, the cartoon, but you're gonna end up looking like Inspector Gadget. Like, you've got like telescoping, what do they call it? What is that? What is that called? Oh, the thing that you bound, your legs end up looking like a telescoping pogo stick. I mean, it's horrible. So you got to feel for guys like that, because it was, as they say, over before it even began. I'm reminded of, I believe it was 2020 or Prime Time or Dateline or one of those shows. Oh, back about 20 years ago, they did a special where they got a bunch of women together. And there was a group of guys, and one of the guys happened to be about 5 foot or 5'2", and they were saying, hey, would you date this guy? And they made up all sorts of cockamamie stories about this guy, that he's a venture capitalist, he's a tech billionaire, he built 10 houses in Aspen all by himself, right? All those accolades. They asked all the women, would you date Stu? That's it, his name was Stu. Would you date Stu? And they all look so embarrassed, because they know that they're supposed to. In a socially civil way, they're supposed to say, oh, of course I date Stu. But they were all looking at each other like, should we be honest? And they were honest. And they said, he's too short. That's it. It doesn't matter what he's accomplished. He's too dang short. That's what the women said. And so it just, imagine being a man who's on that lower end of the bell curve, where he's not even in the bell anymore. He's outside the dang bell. 5'1", man. I mean, it's got to be hard, it's got to be hard as a man to be a friend to a person like that too. Imagine being friends with a guy who's 5'1". I mean, how would you be able to console him? You wouldn't be able to. You wouldn't be able to console that guy. There's nothing you could say to him that would help him. There's nothing you could say to him that would make him feel any better about his lot in life. I think the shortest guy I've ever met in my life was a kid that I went to high school with. His name was Spud. And he was a Hispanic guy, and I think he was maybe 5'3" or 5'4". And, I remember, Spud had at least one girlfriend in high school. He was an outgoing dude. He was, athletic. He was a nice guy. So he got something. But imagine if you're 5'1", you got a bad personality, you're not good at anything, you're broke. I mean, man, you gotta, even if you don't have empathy in general for a lot of people, if you're a man, you gotta just, we all know this as men. You look at, because we're always sizing each other up in a way, you know? Kind of like how we nod at guys in public. You nod down when you don't know a dude. You nod up when you do know a dude. Nodding down is a way of protecting your neck just in case you don't know if he's volatile or not. You know what I mean? So we're all kind of judging other dudes and sizing them up all day long. I was at Home Depot earlier, a different Home Depot than I normally go to. I'm over in Oklahoma right now. Had to go to Oklahoma and pick up some building materials from a supplier out there. And there was a guy at Home Depot, man. He was yoked, but he was 5'3". And I could tell when he walked past, he said, "Hey, sir, you finding everything you're looking for?" I said, "Yeah, man, I'm good." And I could just tell, because I'm about 8 inches taller than him. I could tell just the smile on his face. What belied that smile was anger. Why me? Why do I have to be this short, man? Because the guy, he didn't have a bad face, you know? And I think that's the worst thing, man. When you're a short guy and you've got an attractive face, that's where you know the gods really just didn't have anything good in store for you. I mean, it's if you're really short as a dude and you've got a lackluster face, then at least you're kind of like a package deal of genetic detritus, you know, to say it nicely. But to be a short guy and have a good face, I mean, that's got to be horrible, dude. Because, you know, women will probably want to be friends with you because you're attractive. It's just your freaking spinal cord. That dang spinal cord, man. Like, if men knew when they were born that their spinal cord was going to be the be-all, end-all for life. Can you imagine? Nobody tells you this growing up. Man, I don't know about you guys, but I remember my freshman year of high school. I was short. I was probably 5'4". I was short. I didn't get my growth spurt yet. I didn't get my growth spurt until sophomore year, where I shot up to like 5'10" or 5'11". You know, I'm one of those. On a good day, probably 5'11". On a bad day, probably 5'10", whatever. But, you know, as an average height man, I feel perfectly fine about myself because I know that guys in my height range of normalcy, they get girlfriends, they get wives, they're okay. You know, I mean, yeah, these women might want dudes who are 6'2", 6'4", 6'5", but there's not enough of those dudes to go around. So what are you gonna do? The problem is when you're like 5'6" or lower for a man. You know, there's a bunch of different studies on this stuff. You know, guys who are 5'7", you know, 5'8", they're okay. But it seems like 5'6" and lower is where guys seem to really hit that problem, you know, with the opposite sex. And then also, I mean, you just don't see short CEOs. The only exception I can think of from the top, off the top of my head, is Jeff Bezos. Now, I may be wrong about this, but I think Jeff Bezos is like 5'6" or 5'7". And so that sucks, man. That sucks to be that. You're 5'6", 5'7", you're a CEO, and you still get mogged everywhere you go. I mean, you're a billionaire. People don't care. They don't care because your spinal cord is stunted. You know, your skeleton is vertically disadvantaged. It's got to be rough. I mean, you got to feel bad for these guys. And the thing is, it's really interesting because I don't know if there's any studies on this about the prevalence for shorter guys to show maladaptive behavior or go to prison or have just behavioral problems. You would think there's probably something to it. Now, we all know you can meet a guy who's humongous and you think that you should be scared of him. And then you find that he's a gentle giant. But then on the opposite end, some dudes who are smaller end up having that, you know, Napoleon complex where they're volatile and they're dangerous. You know, I've seen that primarily with guys between the 5'4", 5'7" range where they've got an axe to grind. They've got a chip on their shoulder. With dudes who I've known who are shorter than that, I haven't seen that. But I think what's scarier is that a guy who's super short, I think that he probably does feel that chip on his shoulder because he's so small in stature. he probably keeps it to himself, and it's just a bubbling anger, I would imagine. Yeah, I don't know for certain, but I would imagine there's something to it. You know, you gotta feel bad for guys like that. There's not much they can do. But that mugshot that I posted on my community post earlier, I mean, that guy, it just looks over for him, you know. We don't know anything about that guy. Don't know anything about who he is, you know, what his background is or anything, but it just seems, well, there's no hope for him. So it's sad. I don't know. I saw that on my Facebook feed today. I said, wow, that really sucks for him. And the things that he'll probably do in his life to try to get a woman, I mean, the crimes or the antisocial behavior that he'll commit as a last-ditch effort. And the thing about that guy is I bet you he's not even really a criminal. I bet you he's not even like a criminal type dude. He's just so desperate that he almost ends up falling into crime because he's just so desperate for female validation or a girlfriend or sex or whatever. He probably just ends up coming across as so creepy and needy that he gets reported. I could be wrong about that. Maybe he is like violent or whatever, or harassing or whatever, but it would seem to me that there's probably more to the story than meets the eye. So that sucks. That really sucks if you're a dude and you're 5'1". I can't even imagine. I really can't even imagine. I mean, at that point, you're shorter than most women. You know, the average female height in the U.S., I think, is like 5'4", 5'5". Average male height's like 5'9". You know, if you're 3 inches shorter than the average female woman, I mean, I can't even imagine how you cope. You know, and you can make jokes saying, oh, yeah, well, we're all the same height when we're horizontal, ha, ha, ha. Yeah, bro, but to get horizontal with a woman presupposes that when you're vertical, you know how to endear yourself to her first. Poor guy. Poor guy. Don't commit crime.